Years ago, T.O. reached out to No Longer Bound, and he started a workout on Wednesdays at Caney Creek. Not short after that, I jumped in, started going to the workouts, and I met Roll Tide and Sunshine at the Caney Creek beatdowns. And Andy Stanley, pastor, always talks about providential relationships, and I look at this guy's providential relationship in my life, how he's changed my life, looking at just my other brother. Long story short, right after he graduated in December, he moved back down to Macon, and he started F3 Macon. We went down to one of the first workouts. One hit was there. Awesome stuff. So these guys came up. I want to give these guys a round of applause for coming up to our Convergence today. Thank you guys. But anyway, so they started F3 Macon 2018 in May, right? May 2018, one workout. As of last week, 9 workouts in Macon, 2 in Forsyth, and 1 up in.
Or working on Perry now.
Perry? Yeah. So just blowing up down there in Macon. So awesome. I'll stop talking because that's not my strong suit. And I'll let Roll Tide do it. Thank you.
Guys, I want to thank Nacho for that great introduction, Cookie and Haha for the emotional headlock last weekend. I was up here for some training and they said, "Hey, what are you doing next weekend?" Time and time again, these guys find ways to challenge not only me, but the men in Macon in new and unique ways, calling us out of our comfort zone. And that's exactly what this is this morning. It was uncomfortable getting up. It was uncomfortable standing in front of all you men. But hey, that's what we did this thing for, right? Yeah. And back in 2017, my life had become unmanageable. The opposite of addiction is connection, and I found myself completely disconnected from anything meaningful. I found my worth in my work, and very, very little from my relationships with God, self, and others. And it was causing pain not only to me, but to those who were in my circle, my wife, my family. I didn't have many friends because of the disconnection, but it was out of control. And in January of 2017, God allowed me to have a wreck. I had a wreck, and by His grace, the lady that I hit and I both walked away. But that started the path that led to here today. My wife started calling friends and said, found No Longer Bound, and at the same time, my mother had taught me into going to see this counselor in Macon who also said No Longer Bound. Well, he gave me about 12 hours because if you know anything about addicts, we're really good at manipulating, playing the victim, and it's not my fault, it's somebody else. And I was no different. So often we find ourselves in addiction because we don't know how to handle the trauma that's happened to us, and we end up pushing everybody away. And I was so insecure. I thought that I could just be what you needed and what you needed and what you needed, but then I lost myself. And that counselor, he gave me about 12 hours, and I went home and slept on the couch that night because my wife was done. We were in our first year of marriage. I mean, we were really struggling, and we didn't even know it. That night at 2 or 3 in the morning, I realized what I had to do. And the next morning I went back to that counselor, and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'll go to the bound." And not knowing what I'd committed to, but I said yes. He brought an iPad in, and he showed me this video of this guy who had gone through the bound a couple of years before me. And this guy had walked a similar struggle. He had found freedom, and his family had been restored. And I said, okay, I've made the right call. Well, that guy is here today. That's one hit. And one hit walked it out ahead of me and continues to walk it out every day and inspire me. And so as I transitioned to the bound and walked down the hill, I felt the love like I hadn't felt in a very long time since I was a small child. And I started to realize that there was nothing wrong with me. there were just some lies that I was believing that convinced me that I was broken. And through that time, I was able to meet God. I was able to learn what healthy relationships look like. And I was able to walk through some trauma that otherwise would go unaddressed. And so, as I began to get healthier, all of a sudden, TO, they show up one morning in the meeting and they say, hey, there's this group of guys that want to work out with y'all. Anybody want to do it? Well, 35 of the 40 guys or thereabouts raised their hand and said, yeah, let's do this. And I said, okay, we'll try it. Wednesday mornings, 5:15 at Caney Creek. So we went. We had 3 van loads of dudes, and we got our teeth kicked in. I think Cookie was there, Miller Time, Nacho, all these other guys, they were just studs. And so there were a couple of us that went back.
I was there too.
I gave you my name. That first day, something changed, and there were a lot of guys who said, no, never again. There were a few of us that said absolutely, and a few more that didn't know yet. But the point was, the seeds were planted. And that was because you guys were willing to do something different. You wanted to give it away, what you had been given, what you had found, and share. Well, roll on a couple of more weeks, and then that glue starts kicking in that we so often talk about. T.O. worked his corporate job, and one afternoon, he took some time off to come over to the Bound, and he sat down with 4 or 5 of us. And he said, guys, this is your AO. We want you to own it. And we don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to ask you a hard question. Who wants to queue? And every finger in the room pointed at me, and I said, what are y'all talking about? A couple of weeks later, I queued. And it was again saying, doing the hard thing that I didn't want to do, but I knew I needed to. And from that moment on, things started to change. Well, fast forward a couple of months to December, it's time for me to go back home. My wife said, okay, I forgive you. Let's reconcile this thing and reunify. And so one of those last circle of trust, I remember saying, hey, I'm going back home. Thank you for everything. The joke was made, well, we don't have F3 in Macon, but if you want to start it, give us a call. We'll help you. And again, I kind of chuckled. I don't know what you're talking about. But it didn't take long. I got home, I read Free to Lead, and I realized that fern of the gym that I had joined just wasn't all that appealing. And so we got in touch with T.O. and AHA and a few others, and y'all came down a few months later, and we started F3 Macon. For 4 weeks, you guys made the trip, different ones, and you made an impact because there's the Hill Day Nacho on the backside of the institution's AO. So you rarely get to see the seeds that you plant in the men around you, and what y'all are doing for the men who no longer bound. It's just one story of a one man who got lost, and through the help of the community that surrounded him and loved him, has found some freedom. It's not perfect. We're still working through it. There's been more pain and trauma since the bound. That's been hard to walk through. But I've been able to do it with a community of men just like you. And had you guys not have stepped up and put me in an emotional headlock and said, hey, post, Q, now go give this thing away, we never would have been there. You guys have influenced, you're pushing 200 men that have a name in Macon now. Like, whether they come back and post again, they know what F3 is. They know what we stand for, and they know that this is one option to reinvigorate male leadership in the community. Thank you for what you're doing. It matters more than you know. And thank you for this opportunity. I love you. I'll see you in the glen.
All right.